Oscar himself will undoubtedly be the one most affected by John Adams' terrible demise, and with good reason. During the Gilded Age, when sexual love between two men equates to, at most, irreparable social ruin, John was the only one who saw Oscar for who he really was, the guy who loved Oscar more than Oscar loved himself. John provided Oscar with the warmth he didn't find in Agnes, Christine Baranski, and the sense of belonging he could never fully find in society, both before and after Oscar unintentionally gave away the whole Van Ryn inheritance. Furthermore, during the Gilded Age, Oscar has avoided this closeness in John's company in an effort to protect himself. John's passing signifies the end of Oscar's most significant relationship, a wealthy wedding match, further separating him from the other members of the cast of the Gilded Age. Like most things in the Gilded Age, John's abrupt death has another terrible repercussion that has to do with money. John was the only person by Oscar's side to help him recover socially after his collapse, giving him the means to become a banker once more and start accumulating a new clientele. Even though Oscar will continue to have these clients in the episodes, his past self-destructive conduct could make it difficult to predict how successful he will be without the assistance of one of the Gilded Age's greatest personalities. Bode disaster for his entire project when he finally gives vent to his sorrow at John's death. After all, a person can only handle so much, and Oscar is undoubtedly nearing his own breaking point after being humiliated by his terrible investment the previous season. That being said, there might be a bright side to John Adams' unexpected passing. Fellows is obviously a fan of improbable fortunes, and the Gilded Age would not exist without its inheritances, especially after Ada, Cynthia Nixon, saved the Van Ryn family from financial collapse last season and Jack amassed an incredible amount of wealth this season. John's unrivaled affection for Oscar means that the presidential heir might give Oscar the money to restore his social status, particularly since John was single before his passing. In addition to honoring the Gilded Age's sole explicitly LGBT relationship following an exceptionally surprising death, such a development would, in retrospect, make a bitter passing a little sweeter. Nevertheless, the implications of this loss for the series' future outweigh any potential advantages of John Adams' demise. The fundamental fact that spectators had no reason to think John Adams was in grave danger is what made his death so startling in light of the cunning, brutality, and recklessness shown by the other prominent social figures in the Gilded Age. John should have been protected from the worst that Fellows series had to offer because he was a young gentleman with a higher status in high society than most and a blood relative of a previous president. The Gilded Age's creators have certainly not shied away from graphic deaths in the past, but fans would have been wise to wager on characters like George Russell, Morgan Spector, or the characters that are least likely to make it through the series are Charles Fane, Ward Horton. A much darker, more erratic tone for the Gilded Age is hinted at by the abrupt death of a character who had every reason to feel secure. The stakes are considerably higher for those who are genuinely putting themselves in danger if someone as ordinary as a passing carriage can assassinate John Adams, a supporting cast member who never planned against anyone and enjoyed the complete protection of his station. Even though Gladys has made progress recently in England, she is especially vulnerable as and Jack is particularly vulnerable at this stage in the story, but so is American, who has no family or social ties on her new farm. The most naive character member could lose everything in a future financial catastrophe, eliminating the series' strongest rags to riches narrative. This is more likely than ever given the former footman's lack of financial experience and the Gilded Age's similarities to actual events. However, Marion, Louisa Jacobson, is the finest choice for a severe story progression because those who pursue the greatest happiness always run the danger of experiencing the greatest pain. For the honorary Van Ryn, Season 3 of The Gilded Age begins on a rather high note in comparison to previous seasons, causing many fans to conjecture that at the end of the season, either Larry Russell, Harry Richardson, or Ms. Brooke may suffer a terrible fate. Naturally, conjecture is just that, speculation, and viewers won't find out until they watch the next 2 episodes of Season 3 and the newly revealed Season 4 of The Gilded Age. With its most recent departure, Fellows series has undoubtedly taken a sinister turn, conveying the message that nobody is really safe. There are acts of generosity and cruelty on television, and then there is what Julian Fellows did to us in the most recent episode of The Gilded Age. The popular HBO series saves its most traumatic surprise for last, in an episode where Jack, Ben Ehlers, begins to take the first steps towards his destiny as a gentleman and Gladys, Taissa Farmiga, first starts expressing herself as a duchess. The series' recuperating hero is comforted by his longtime sweetheart when Oscar Van Ryn, Blake Ritson, bids Maud Beaton, Nicole Bridden Bloom, a surprisingly compassionate farewell. The episode closes on a heartfelt note of close friendship with John Adams, Clayburn Elder. Or at least it would have, had John not been fatally cliffhung immediately after being abruptly hit by a carriage. The Gilded Age's presidential descendant was undoubtedly killed in the accident, based on the preview for next week's episode. The main characters and the show's loyal fan base will undoubtedly be shocked by this loss. John Adams has been a distinctively healthy character in the Gilded Age since the beginning. In contrast to John has never been involved in unethical drama, a terrible social scandal or hostile behavior, whether it be from Bertha Russell, Carrie Coon, New York's other elite socialites or even members of the Van Ryn household. As a result, it is an unparalleled act of narrative heartlessness for the series to have this sincere supporting character abruptly disappear just as the credits roll. This will have long-term effects on the Gilded Age's future. Lady Sarah has humiliated and denigrated Gladys whenever she has had the opportunity since they arrived at the Duke's ancestral estate. Lady Sarah is obviously in charge at Sidmouth Castle, as seen by her reprimands of Gladys in front of guests and her command of the Duke's attention. However, this presents a significant issue because Gladys is now the lady of the house. In order to flourish in England in the upcoming episodes, Gladys must learn to express herself because Lady Sarah and the Duke want her money but don't want her presence in episode 4. Lady Sarah seems strange, and this feeling persisted when it was revealed in episode 5 that she intended for Hector to wed a wealthy American. In order to flourish in England in the upcoming episodes, Gladys must learn to express herself because Lady Sarah and the Duke want her money but don't want her presence.